Welcome. We're down at Hoot Lake, which is near Fergus Falls, Minnesota. This is the place that Lori and I are working and clearing a lot where we can build our home, and this will be the headquarters for Shamgar Ministries if the Lord allows us to do that. But today we're going to start a brand new series entitled The Good Fight from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 11 to 21. This is a very moving passage in which Apostle Paul is addressing a young man that he loved very much, a man by the name of Timothy, who was like a son to him. Timothy was left all alone in Ephesus, and was given the challenging responsibility and had the ministry of building the congregations and the churches in that city. If you've ever been alone and had a lot of responsibilities, you know what it's like to be alone. You probably know how Timothy felt. It's overwhelming at times, but the aging Paul wrote these letters to encourage him. In fact, the chapter in my Bible says these are Paul's final instructions to Timothy. And I'm sure Timothy paid close attention to these precious and important instructions. But guess what? These words are here to encourage us today. And as Paul began to instruct Timothy, Paul recognized the true nature of the Christian life. It is a battleground. Consider everything that happened to Paul. Every time Paul got in a boat, it couldn't float. He was shipwrecked. He was beaten. He was put in jail. He was falsely accused. Did Paul get much of a break? Not hardly. And Paul wanted Timothy to understand that the battle rages on and we can't quit. We can't give up and go home. The enemy doesn't leave us alone either. He wants to discourage us. But Apostle Paul, he challenges and encourages Timothy to fight the good fight. So as Paul begins these instructions, the first thing he says to Timothy, "Oh man of God." If someone like this Apostle Paul, a spiritual Rambo, calls him a man of God, this must have really encouraged Timothy. Wouldn't that encourage you? Well, man, we're going to take a side by here. Because we're not to go into our spiritual battles alone. We got to understand that what Paul was doing was mentoring and caring and discipling and encouraging Timothy. He was building Timothy up in the Lord by pouring himself into this young man. But do you remember that Barnabas also encouraged Paul? At my ripe age of 67, the one thing I can tell you is I still need a lot of encouragement. Just a couple of weeks ago, a man who has mentored and encouraged me for over 30 years came to visit Lori and I, and he prayed for us. He encouraged us. I can't even begin to tell you of what it meant when they came and visited us. I, in turn, though, have several men that I'm mentoring and discipling. In a survey of over 1,000 men, 84% said they wished and they longed for spiritual mentorship from another man. All of us need to be mentored in our spiritual life. And in turn, we need to be investing what we have learned into someone else. We grow when we do that. You mustn't believe the lie that you're just an ordinary guy that can't make a difference, because that's so wrong. And if you're a born-again Christian of Jesus Christ, you have the Holy Spirit indwelling in you, and you can make a difference in the lives of others. Let me ask you a question. Who are you mentoring? Who are you encouraging? Who are you pouring yourself into? You see, men, we need each other in this spiritual battle that we're facing today. So what does a man of God do in a world like ours? Paul gave us 3 instructions in this passage, and they were to flee, follow, and fight. Well, because of time constraints, we're going to only take a look at the first one. We're going to take a look at the first instruction, first coming from 1 Timothy 5:11. And here Paul is telling Timothy, but as for you, a man of God, flee from these things. So what things is Paul referring to here? If we go back to the previous verses, we find that Timothy is to flee false teaching, doctrine that does not agree with the teachings of Jesus Christ. He's to be especially on guard and flee from the conceit of taking pride in having knowledge and relying on that as a basis for success. He to flee the spirit of combativeness or the love of controversy. And let's face it, all around us we've got joy suckers that enjoy creating controversy and destroying the unity within the church. But next, Paul warned Timothy to flee greed and the love of money that can cause us to get out of focus and to wander from the faith. So the word flee means to run away from a place or situation of danger. Paul saw the danger of false teaching. Paul saw the danger of the love of money, and he was concerned for Timothy, and he loved him enough to warn him. And that's what we mentors do. We warn our loved ones that we're investing in of anything that can harm them. And we want them to be strong in their spiritual walk. But as Shamgar, we'll start where we are, take what we have, and fulfill the mission of encouraging someone else. God bless.